joined by my colleague and the reporter here at eNCA, Manqoba Mchunu, who was inside a short while ago, especially looking at the dignitaries who were arriving. Among them, of course, Mvuyelo Thabo Mbeki, former president, the man who, as president of this country, awarded Rita Ndzanga, the late struggle stalwart, the Order of Luthuli in silver. So just tell us very briefly first what was happening earlier before the singing of the anthems.
Well, certainly, Prajan, we've seen a lot of ANC Women's League members arriving here, of course, to pay homage to this struggle stalwart. It was one of the last surviving struggle stalwarts, Prajan, as you know, alongside Umamu Sophia Dibane. And in fact, I was with them just 2 weeks ago when we were at that memorial of the 1956 march, which was held by the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation. And that's where she spoke also during that event. And I mean, it was surreal when I heard, Prajan, that she had passed on. But just
in fact, she passed on 10 days after that particular commemoration.
Indeed, Prajan. And in fact, I was, taken aback because, you wouldn't tell that this was somebody who was frail. She didn't look frail at all. But I just am reminded of, the resilience that Rita Ndzanga stood for. When speaking to one of his grandsons, earlier on, he spoke about the resilience, the fact that this is somebody who gave her all to the fight for liberation in this country. This is somebody who had spent time in detention, at sometimes even spending time for over 6 months, not being able to change any of her clothes in the same clothes. She was arrested, of course, alongside also the likes of Winnie Madikizela Mandela in 1969. She was not only detained there, she was detained on numerous occasions under the Terrorism Act. And this is somebody who still continued, even despite those obstacles, who still continued with the, the baton. She continued with the fight for liberation in this country, and somebody that we as the young people also should look up to in terms of resilience, in terms of the fight.
Talking about the young people, I interviewed a couple of other colleagues and comrades of hers earlier who looked at to her as a mentor, including the like of Susan Shabangu, and all of them are saying she was committed and dedicated to education, even during the 1976 riots, telling the students of Soweto to say, you have to go back to school so you can get educated.
And we know what the critical part she played, but then in education, in the trade union itself. When you speak of SACTU, we speak of the Rail Workers Union, where she was a secretary. She was also educating young people there and mobilizing them, towards the struggle for freedom. But also she was instrumental, but then we know that she was instrumental in that, iconic march of 1956. She was one of the people on the ground, even though she was not a leader per se of that particular march, but she was involved in the organization, in the mobilization of some of the people on the ground to come to that march. And in fact, she was herself part of that march, and which is the reason why, in fact, she was there on the 7th of August to remember some of those leaders of that march. So this is somebody who really was dedicated, but then who gave her life to the fight for freedom, who gave her life to educating the younger generation, and also somebody who advocated quite strongly for education and for human rights.
Okay, yeah, and that's coming across very strongly, but she was also a warrior for women's emancipation. You've mentioned the strong presence here today of the ANC Women's League.
We do know, of course, Prajan, that she has played quite a number of leadership structures in, the ANC itself. She was the chairperson of the branch, the Lawrence Ndzanga branch, which was named after her husband, who died in 1977. At the time, both of them were in detention. She was not even afforded that opportunity to go and bury her husband, but she continued to take the baton and to fight the issues of women, to always be in the forefront, whether it was in the political space, whether it was in the trade union space. She continued to fight women's issues. And of course, we've been seeing her also, even in Parliament. She was one of the women in Parliament that stood, for the African National Congress. So this is somebody who was very significant, who played a huge role, and who actually admired and who, inspired a lot of young women of today to also stand up for issues facing women of today.
Thank you very much, Manqoba Mchunu there, my colleague, the reporter, talking to us about what he's read, what he's found out, what he's been told about this stalwart of the liberation struggle of South Africa, Rita Ndzanga. I'm now going to be joined by Gloria Mulife, who is in the executive committee of the Lawrence Ndzanga branch here in Soweto. She's already come here to be with us and just share her views about this late struggle stalwart. Mulife, good afternoon. Welcome to today on eNCA. I can hear from the singing that is also a celebration of the life of Rita Ndzanga. What are your memories?
I'm hurt, I'm happy at the same time. I'm celebrating her life to the fullest because this woman was an extraordinary woman. She used to teach us that we must respect the colors of ANC. As you can see that flag, when it's like this, she didn't like it like that. She wanted to be a green down and yellow in the bottom and then the black on the top, because it represents the black nation and is the world is the gold. Even if she comes and find us decorated the stage, she will change everything. And on the 9th, we were honoring her. It was her, Me Ngumalo, Me Mayatule. She came very early. She was very punctual. She used
that talks to discipline and commitment.
Definitely, she was very disciplined, that woman. And if you come late, she would shout us as women. She used to tell us that we are the necks of men. Men are heads, and we are necks, and we must control this head to face every direction you want to face. And we must take care of our homes, which is ANC. The last words I've heard from her on the 9th, that was her last words. She said to us, women, please look after ANC. ANC is dying slowly, and you are here. So please take care of ANC. That was her last words.
Why do you think she made that appeal and saying the ANC is dying?
It's because, on my opinion, we are not committed enough like her. She was very committed to the organization. Can I tell you something? You know, Rita, I was working with crutches. I was working in an industrial council. Then, you know, when you get old, legs can't carry you. Me Ngumalo and Rita organized the wheelchair for me. And they came to my place and told me that you must work, don't stay down. You mustn't sit down, you must stand up and work for the nation, because the upper body is still working, it's only the legs. And your heart and brains are still working. So please carry on with your work.
I've heard she was a bit disappointed about the fact that many of the ANC leaders, even those who were in the struggle after democracy, have become corrupt.
She used to say they are becoming greedy. They only want to eat alone. They don't care about the poor nation. And we are all seeing that. And it's very hurting, sir. It's hurting because those people didn't enjoy their life. They were always in jail, in and out. She didn't even bury her husband because of the struggle. We got the freedom and we are abusing it now.
So how do you take forward her legacy? Because she said a few words on the 9th of August to say, women of the ANC, please look after the ANC because it's dying. How will you and your comrades do that?
As you can see, I'm smiling because I've already started. What I want to do at the moment, I want these women to work with their hands. They mustn't stay down and gossip all the time. What they must do is to work with hands to make food for their children. I like agriculture. I went to school. I can plow, although I can't handle the fortune. So it's my aim to organize women and the young women to come and make gardening.
So it's going to be through hard work. Thank you very much, Me Molefe, and all the best for sharing your views and your insights about Me Rita Ndzanga. Next, I'm joined by Nompumelelo Mazibuko she was a ward councillor from Ward 33. That's where the Struggle Stalwarts house is. Is that in Snawane?
Yes, sir. It is. It's in Snawana.
Yeah, and that's where she was literally house arrested there at some time, and she was restricted to her home at some point while she was being persecuted by the apartheid regime.
That's correct. That's true, sir.
So now tell us, Nompumelelo, how will you and the younger generation, when you hear of the history of her contribution to the struggle of Rita Ndzanga, how selfless she was, the kind of ethical leadership that she espoused, her discipline and commitment, how will you take her legacy forward?
Well, firstly, as a female councillor, a ward councillor, this is exactly what we strive to do. I think for me to have the opportunity to be a ward councillor is because of women like her. You know, to make sure that some of us are able to be in such political spaces, such leadership positions, so that we learn from them and take a bit of what they've taught us to say this is exactly what we need to do going forward. And this is how we as young women, as ward councillors, are going to ensure that we serve the community selflessly.
You know, those are the right ways. I'm smiling because we hear them all the time from leaders like yourselves, community leaders. But when it comes to the doing, somehow there are gaps. How will you ensure that you'll do the right thing?
Well, for me, I come from a family of activists, community activists, and it's something that we're taught, and it's something that is ingrained in my being. So it's almost like saying, you know, I've just got a bigger seat and a bigger chunk and a bigger responsibility that says you must make sure that you go every corner of the ward to make sure that you service each and every person that you come across.
The keynote tribute will be paid by Thabo Mbeki, former president of the ANC and also former president of the country. One of the remarks he made recently at an ANC function, and is that many people have joined the ANC after democracy because they see a career, because they're going to get job and get access to resources. What would your message be?
Well, you see, when you sign the declaration, or when you sign the form of the ANC, it tells you that the declaration that you must serve selflessly and serve without financial gain. And some of us have got the privilege of coming from a different background, of saying you've been in the professional space and you're not taking the political space as a career. But because it's actually what we need to do. You know, we need to move away from that, and not everyone in the ANC is deemed to be doing the same thing.
So your ward is where the struggle stalwart's house is. What will that ward do? What will be the one thing in a legacy, in a memory, that you believe you should do?
Well, as a female councillor, one of the things that we're pushing, or I'm really focusing on, is the empowerment of young women, making sure that every single citizen understands and knows what the Commission for Gender Equality is, and understands, you know, what 1956 meant for us as young women right now. So it's about elevating women within the ward and making sure that we take up all these spaces that, you know, we're always men-dominated, and it's our time now to make sure that women and young women make their mark.
Yeah, we'll let you go, Nompumelelo, to join the memorial, the official memorial service inside as the speakers go. And thanks for your reflections and all the best. Well, there's a young lady there, that's Nompumelelo Mazibugo. She's a ward councillor 33, and that's where the struggle stalwart's house is in Sinawane here in Soweto. Sinawane is not far from where we are at this Dlamini Multi-Purpose Community Center in Soweto, which is hosting the venue, that is hosting the official memorial service of Rita Ndzanga. We are hearing about her contribution. We are hearing about her commitment to the anti-apartheid struggle. My next guest now comes from COSATU, the Trade Union Federation, and I'm joined by the second deputy president of COSATU, that's Makulu Lidwaba. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you very much. Welcome to Today on eNCA.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much, Dan.
In the history of Rita Ndzanga, we hear that she was a trade unionist for many years, and she was also part and played an instrumental part in the foundation of the General Allied Workers Union many years ago, which was also a crucial part in the formation of then the South African Congress of Trade Unions, SACTU, as well later then that became COSATU. You, as the trade union leaders, how will you be honoring her memory?
You know, it is actually a sad day. Rita Ndzanga represents a special breed of women in struggle. If you go through her profile and her activities as a unionist, nothing in that entire profile that tells you of comfort, of opulence, it has always been pain, and that greatest level of resilience. She played such a pivotal role in ensuring that South African workers unite under COSATU, and at the founding Congress, indeed, I was elected second deputy president. We interacted with Rita Ndzanga even during the last years of the unity talks, and from time to time you would realize that a baobab tree has actually risen. So it is with a heavy heart, that we have to say farewell to this giant, like others before her. Emma Mashinini, these were women who literally anchored trade union activism and carried the hope of ordinary working class people of our country that the end is near.
We saw the working class in the streets of South Africa just yesterday, and with the national shutdown against the cost of living, and there was a call for unity among the different federations like COSATU, your federation, and SAFTU. In her memory, to carry forward her legacy, if she united the labor movement so many years ago, what do you think about that?
Look, I mean, the clarion call of the formation of COSATU was one industry, one union, one country, one federation. And for some reason, that was not attained, precisely because of prevailing political dynamics at that time. And we took a view that once the political temperature eases, there will be common ground where organized labor sees the importance of getting together and establishing indeed one federation in a democratic South Africa.
Is that possible?
I think it is. If there is a political will, because the onslaught against the workers is sustained. It doesn't matter whether you are SAFTU, whether you are NACTU, whether you are COSATU, whether you are FEDUSA. The assault is the same intensity, and the outcome is always the same. It is the worker that suffers.
So Rita Ndzanga's memory will be best served by a united federation?
Absolutely. If everything else is put aside and they prioritize the importance of a strong working class trade union movement, that can be achieved.
What about ethical leadership? Because she's come across, from everything I've read about her and other interviews I've done, as someone who was not just disciplined and committed, but she was selfless, as you've said, but she was an ethical leader.
We've had many of those in the past. I mean, there is an entire catalogue of ethical leaders that can be cited. Unfortunately, the new democratic dispensation has thrown into the mix a whole number of other dynamics that at times you find puzzling, and at times you say it may well be an expression of what needs to be stood against. And Rita Ndzanga, I think she died holding on to that view that there is nothing better than ethical leadership.
Thank you very much, Makhululi Dwaba, Second Deputy Secretary, former Second Deputy President of COSATU. Right. Thank you very much. You can go in there to help you. Yeah. As we're coming to you, there is a march that's happening behind me. I don't know if you can see it. I'm just going to step out of the shot so Matala can zoom in there. You can see it's a small group of MK coming in there to pay their tribute to the departed Rita Ndzanga. So now I'm going to be joined by another guest, Megwen Ramakgopa, who might be known to many of our viewers having played very prominent roles in the provincial government of Gauteng. She's joining us now as well to reflect on the lives and times of Rita Ndzanga. Gwen, good afternoon. Welcome to Today on eNCA.
Good afternoon.
I have to say this because I don't see...
To the viewers as well.
Yeah, I have to say this because I don't see you often. You look so beautiful. You are dressed wonderfully to come and honor a struggle hero. I'm sure somebody you looked up to.
Yes, indeed. Rita Ndzanga is one of our pioneers
pioneer women who, when it was not fashionable to stand up for the rights of women, for the rights of workers, she did. And we're proud of that history, we're proud of that legacy, and that's what made us to stand up as well and say justice in our lifetime. Kululu Mandela, Sasang, or 4 o'clock, we were even precise, and that our government was in exile and it must come back. So they gave us the strength, they gave us the stealth, they gave us the resilience and the tenacity to hold on, because they did. But we must also never forget that it was not easy. She suffered a lot. At some stage, she was actually pulled away from her children, who were clinging to her dress when she was detained. So yes, we also remember that our struggle was not free.
Yeah, she was tortured, she was also banned, she was in solitary confinement, she was jailed in 1969 together with a group of other women like Mama Winnie Madikizela-Mandela and Aushe Joyce Sikhakhane. She's got that legacy. And it should have given you and other ANC women a good foundation. But she was disappointed. I mean, at the commemoration on the 9th of August, when she last spoke, she asked young women and women of the ANC to really help the ANC, to protect the ANC in a way, because the ANC is dying because of the wrong reasons. Amongst them was greed, as she said. How do you respond to that? How do you fix things going forward as a woman?
Ma'am Rita Ndzanga and her generation, when we were growing up, they did say that the second phase of our liberation, which is after the political freedom, was going to be more difficult, more complex, and that we needed to be more ready for, especially in terms of political consciousness, in terms of discipline, of values and principles. And yes, we have arrived. We have arrived where, greed, where, power and all that seems to take precedence among some of us. But this is the time for renewal. We are glad that the ANC at its 54th conference reinforce at our the national policy conference we've had that renewal is on track.
It's going to be difficult to engender that spirit of selflessness, because people have become comfortable in their new roles, comfortable in their luxury cars, comfortable in their luxury homes. Or do you differ?
Well, if some of us can still drive a Toyota and not have blue lights and still be alive, kicking and well, and still serve our people, we hope that that is also how others can really view what the struggle was all about. It was not about pomp and ceremony. It was not about the prestige or privileged position, but it was about serving society. So when we are called, it is an honor. It is not a right. So we also encourage young people. We're glad that Ma'am Rita Ndzanga leaves us with a very vibrant young women's movement to also continue her legacy, but also young men. Ma'am Ndzanga is one of those women leaders that said, don't leave the boys behind, don't leave young men behind. So for all our youth, we're saying this is the legacy to read about, to emulate, and to ensure that we celebrate it and live it in our lives.
I guess the actions will then speak louder than words. Thank you very much, Gwen Ramukhopa. They're reflecting on the stalwart Me Rita Ndzanga and the contribution to the struggle against apartheid and how she thinks her legacy can be best served. I'm now just going to be joined by another ward councillor from Ward 15, that's Vusingema. Me Rita Ndzanga, I understand, was a resident at Ward 15, and that's called, and then there's the Lawrence Ndzanga branch that's based in this ward. Vusi, good afternoon. Welcome to Today on eNCA. Your tribute to Me Rita Ndzanga.
Good evening, sir. Look, as the Ward 15, we are so very much honored to have had an opportunity to meet Ukoko Rita Ndzanga. You would understand that we are a younger generation. During the struggle, we were not there. But look, this is one woman who was able to connect the past and the present. Because as young people of Ward 15, we were able to access her, and she was one person who enjoyed to be around young people.
Yeah, I was told earlier that even during the 1976 Soweto uprisings, she supported the youth even at that time.
Most definitely. And in fact, she continued to do that. Young people, the ANC Women's League in our ward were always around her. There were a lot of activities that were happening. They even honored her for her contribution in development and empowerment of young people. But there's one thing that was very striking about her. She was very humble, very humble. One person who was committed to the struggle and always reminded us about the past and wanted us not to forget the past, but move forward to build the future. Otherwise, she was a very committed person.
How do young people like yourselves take her legacy forward?
One of the decisions that we had to take as Ward 15 was one: how do we keep our heritage? Which is one reason why we had named our ward after her husband. That is one other reason why we wanted to keep it.
Yeah, Lawrence Ndzanga, who died in detention in 1977.
Yes, sir. But also, one thing that we would want to keep in our mind about Umama Ukoko with Rita Ndzanga was to unite the people of Ward 15. I think that is very much important, that we all need to work towards what is for the good of the ward. So this is what she was passionate about. You would hear her when she addresses us in our meetings. She will speak mostly about unity. Which
of her values do you think Ward 15 must carry through? You've mentioned humility, for example. Which other values?
Look, I think the commitment, being commitment in the struggle, that is what kept her going, and how much she loved the organization. I think that is what I will take with me, and again, all of us as a Ward 15 will take the fact that she was committed to the struggle and to the people of South Africa.
Thank you very much for your time here on today here on eNCA. That is the man who comes from the ward that in which Rita Ndzanga was a resident. That's Ward 15 here in Soweto, and the Lawrence Ndzanga branch is based in this ward. Lawrence Ndzanga, of course, dying in detention after he was tortured in 1977. I was just talking now to Vusi Ngema. He's the ward councillor at Ward 15. At the local level, they've always tried on the ground to organize around the rich heritage of Rita Ndzanga, or as young people call it today, Ukoko Rita Ndzanga. Her contribution regarded as immense, her contribution to the anti-apartheid struggle having been highlighted even by President Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa after the death of Rita Ndzanga last week at the age of 88. President Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa expressing his sadness at the passing of the struggle veteran and pioneering trade unionist Rita Alice Ndzanga, and describing her as a veteran, and saying that the nation, according to Ramaphosa, and especially the progressive movements and organized labor, will remember and continue to honor Mama Rita Ndzanga for dedicating the many decades of her life to advancing the fundamental rights of all South Africans. I'm reading a little bit of that statement that was issued last week by President Ramaphosa, going on to say that as a young woman who witnessed the birth of apartheid in 1948 and its ravages over time, Rita Ndzanga took a stand that endangered her own freedom and security so that all of us could be free and secure today. The president also saying the death in detention of her husband Lawrence was among the many profound sacrifices forced on Mama Rita during her life of struggle, in which she put the interest and comfort of others first. Her service to workers on the factory floor and her contribution as a member of parliament are part of a legacy we can and should respect while this stalwart rests in peace. Those are the words of Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa. Yes, indeed, Rita Ndzanga was also a member of parliament. That was in after 1994. She served in that parliament as an MP. I think she retired around about 2004. 2004, around the time where former President Thabo Mbeki awarded her the Luthuli Order, the Order of Luthuli in silver for her contribution to the struggle and for democracy in the country. So the official memorial service is underway here at the Dlamini Multi-Purpose Community Center in Soweto. It's a long program that will include speakers, including the family, like the grandson Rita Ndzanga, family members and friends and comrades, and a group of selected ANC women leaders, the likes of Baby Chawa and Susan Shabangu, who will be speaking during this afternoon. And of course, the keynote tribute will be delivered by former President Thabo Mbeki, who has already arrived here at the Dlamini Multi-Purpose Community Center. And we hope to take you inside the community center so you are able to listen in to what is happening in there. And we will, of course, bring you live the speeches there, including messages of condolences by a number of organizations like the Trade Union Federation, COSATU, the South African Communist Party, as well as the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, among others.